Hello everyone, my name is Damien, your host, and this is Servition Gaming. This is my second channel. My main channel, Servition, is all about music, and I wanted to keep all of my gaming stuff separate. So today I'm going to be starting a series, a six-part series. I just finished my first chess tournament, and I wanted to go over an analysis of each of the games with you. So if you're interested in any kind of chess games or any kind of video games, I'm going to be uploading those to these channels. So consider subscribing, leave a like, and let's continue. I've pulled up the eval bar on chess.org, and we're on lightchess.org, sorry. The tournament was on a different server than I'm used to, but anyway, so let's dig into this. So this was my game. I started about 15:03. It was a blitz game, a 7-0, so it was a little bit faster than my liking, but yeah, keep that in mind. I'm with the white pieces, and my opponent was with black. So let's start. We got e4, e5, and following this, I'm started off with the King's Gambit. I know most engines don't like this, as you can already see down a half, but at this level, what I was playing with at the intermediates, the King's Gambit always is really great to play. But anyway, so he's declining this first setup. I go ahead with guarding the pawn, standard development here, and right away my opponent's making a mistake. You can see the eval bars going off going up in my favor. I kick the knight back up, and he plays on the rim, which isn't exactly the best, but it's not really much worse than going back here. The main point was he lost 2 moves going here all the way back, and I gained a development here in that time. So he really did nothing. He basically lost 2 moves. That's why the eval bar is going up this way. So I'm trying to pull a pawn breakthrough. Excuse me. Capture with the knight. So this one was actually really funny. So the reason that the eval bar was telling me to take queen d4 was actually to stop this check right here, as the knight on f3 guards the queen from coming in. This is a standard theory from the King's Gambit that you always want your knight here on f3, as this check can actually be deadly. But as it turns out, because of this wasted tempo that the knight took over here, the king's actually safe enough that he can go out of the way of castling, and it's actually still positive 1.5 for white here. So even though the king is on e2, almost like we're playing the Bong Cloud, it's actually really good for white. So anyway, my opponent tries to continue development, and that gives me time enough to get my knight back in the game. Here we can see my opponent blundered. He didn't realize that the bishop was guarding the same square. He only saw that there was no pawns on this. So right away I punished that, and he went off continuing for my pieces. I just brought him back. And as you can see there, it was the eval bars talking about this, and the reason that it suggested this move is no, this isn't actually hanging, because the knight would be able to jump, check the king, and take the rook. So that's why the eval bar was suggesting this move. But again, when it's a 7-0 blitz, unfortunately I had to go fast because I didn't have that extra time given at the end of each move. So I didn't want to run into any time trouble taking too long. So of course I just played a standard move, bishop back. As you can see here, the problem with white is that the king is on e2. Luckily the amount of development that white has kind of compensates for this, but the main idea that I was looking for is at this point I need to get the queen out and the king back. An artificial castle on the queen side. He has no development over on the king side here, so it's actually safe to go queen side castling on the king's gambit here. Again, my opponent, we all know the rule, knight on the rim looks grim. And I'm just simply guarding this really because of that whole idea. I wanted the king back, artificial castle, and this knight posing this close was going to be a problem, especially since he still had the light square bishop. I didn't want any kind of light square attack on this side. So he plays in the middle. I'm blocking this particular square because I didn't want more and more pieces away from the king, leaving him isolated. There we go. A few more standard development moves. Here's my opponent's is challenging. Now, it's important to note danger levels, right? I currently have one thing attacking his knight, and he has one bishop attacking this. And then so you can see queen over, I'm not at risk at losing this pawn really because I have this double attack on the knight here. But my opponent decides to take the pawn anyway. Again, this is being threatened in the very next move, so he has to respond to it somehow, and he blunders. So I go ahead and take, eval bar's way up for me. And at this point, the computer moves, they're a bit broken, you know, you can... I don't exactly have to play very perfectly because of how far I'm up. I just have to play slow and precise and just weed him out for the rest of the game. So here he's playing a couple standard development moves. This is to get my king out of the center. Again, I want a artificial castle. His knight goes back, my knight goes up. Again, I'm trying to stop this square for his king and the square for his rook. Tries to attack, but again, I'm able to attack in the center here with this move, recaptures, and guard with the queen. So as you can see, the eval bar is suggesting this to check the king, which is fine, but the reason I was playing this instead was because this actually creates this, what's it called? This border here with the king that the pawn can no longer move. And I wanted to exploit that because I know he won't be able to take here, as I can just... There's too much attacking with the queen on this side, so he had to really pay attention to all of these pawns that they were about to fall. Moves his knight back, and the reason I took here is, again, I said with those pawns, this pawn is falling, and this places a lot of pressure on the rook. I have a bunch of checks going on now with the king. And so his pieces over here on the queen side still aren't developed, and so I'm able to punish that. Take. Now here, you'll see the eval bar is suggesting a bunch of mate threats in the next couple of moves, and again with the time trouble, I wasn't able to see a lot of these. But due to how far up I was, I decided to instead just play a slow game where I just took pieces, but there was definitely a few mate threats going on here. So there was a series of checks going on here to win more material, and again he keeps trying to threaten my queen. And the reason I go back here is I noticed he wasn't moving his king like the eval bar was saying, and instead he was just continuously blocking with the rook, which was fine when the rook was looking at the square. But here, now the rook is pinned to the king, and if he wants to unpin himself, he loses a tempo. So this was definitely not the way to go for the rook. I'm just moving my king again. Artificial castle with the king. A few more development moves. And I could have taken here. I don't know why I didn't see that, but I don't know why. Couple more moves. King is now out of the way, and with this light square bishop, he has no looks upon the king, so he's actually quite safe here on the C file. I'm going to punish that bishop as it's trapped, and as you can see, he fails to guard himself. Go ahead and take the piece. And again, I missed mate in 1, kind of embarrassing, but with the amount of time trouble that I was getting myself into and the fact that I was up so much material, I just decided to go back. Again, he kept pinning himself with the rook. Decided to check the king a bit more material gain, and he hangs a piece actually here. King over, queen back. Again, Stockfish just keeps talking about mates in 2. Find a couple more checking moves going on. Again, he keeps pinning himself with this rook. Any beginners out there, definitely move the king in any of these situations rather than the rook if you can. Obviously, you won't always be able to, but every time you keep pinning the rook, if the queen was here, then yes, you could move the rook up to guard, because then the queen would have to move. But whenever the queen's on a diagonal checking the king, this is just an insta-pin. It's just waiting to get captured. So he moves the king, and I take. Again, Stockfish is recommending this as it would be a very quick mate. But again, I'm up so much material that it really didn't matter. Went ahead and took. Series here, I was just setting up the ladder mate and checkmate. White wins. So that's how the first game went. Really, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, my opponent made a couple mistakes here and there, but the real big one was, of course, right at the beginning when he hung the queen. Let me go back to it. Right there. That was the kind of deciding factor of the whole game. But other than that, there was a lot of just very suspicious things that went on. He kept putting the knights on the edge, kept doing some weird pawn movements instead of developing his pieces. This bishop took so long to get out that his rook back here on the A file was just stuck. And because he didn't end up, I don't think he ended up castling at all. His king was just a big target right in the middle. And it's actually really funny. I still like the fact that Stockfish considered this a winning move with the king on the E2 square. So all fun, but yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll be back again with the following games in this series. Thank you.